Our journey began in Caracas. This was a fulfillment of a long-cherished dream of mine to visit the Indians of South America. I asked the Counselor for South America, Masood Khamsi, to be our business manager, and Dr. Nosrat Rabbani, my lady companion and the medical advisor of the expedition. My expedition also included 4 young Baha'is, experts in filmmaking, Mark Sedan and David Walker from the United States, Rodney Charters from New Zealand, and Anthony Worley from Brazil. From Caracas, we flew to Puerto Ayacucho, the capital of the Federal Territory of Amazonas. The small Baha'i community of Puerto Ayacucho met us at the airport and helped us load our provisions onto a truck.
All right, vamos.
It took us over an hour to reach Venado, a huge flat hump of rock jutting into the Orinoco River. This is the place where all traffic above Puerto Ayacucho leaves for the interior. Some weeks previous to our arrival, Mr. Khamsi had rented a large river barge, which was waiting for us and for our 60 pieces of equipment, baggage, and provisions. This was a trip which was going to take us 1,700 kilometers to visit 8 different Indian tribes in the interior. This was to be our home for 32 nights, and we named her the Queen Mary. The little white room at the back was our bathroom. On the Venezuelan part of our journey, we were accompanied throughout by Leco Zamoro, a Mataco Indian pioneer from Argentina. Every evening, our boat was moored on a sandbank for the night. Our first job in the morning was to roll up our hammocks and get them out of the way. Life aboard the Queen Mary was in no way difficult. In fact, the only real inconvenience were the black flies, which on this particular morning were so vicious that I wore my mosquito net hat.
You're having a bath.
¿Qué es? Está mareando. Ah, así me baño.
No, I'm going to get a bath now, too. Beautiful brown water. I don't know what's in it. Never mind. Woo! Excuse me. Good lungs. Go on.
Wonderful as the water was for drinking, it was usually very dangerous to swim in. The Indians always seem to know where it is safe to go in, and our captain strongly advised the men that they should only bathe from the rocks. We soon found out why. I caught 3 man-eating piranha fish in less than 2 minutes.
Here he is. No, he's my fish. Nobody's going to have him but me.
Every morning we held prayers for the success of our expedition and that we would be guided to do the right thing and meet the right people during the day. Along the Orinoco River and also in the neighborhood of Puerto Ayacucho itself, there are a great many Baha'i communities, some of them of over 10 years standing. This is the Baha'i community of Buenos Aires Island. These people have been Baha'is for about 12 years. The old woman was an expert potter in the traditional style. We were enchanted by one of the Baha'is playing for us on his flute. Over and over again, after we had had prayers, we found that the door would open in a most remarkable way for us to meet the people that we wanted to see.
Buenos días, Capitán.
Buenas tardes. Oh, for my... There we are. Look. Isn't he beautiful?
Jason.
You know, he's so perfectly disguised. You can't even see him.
Alan, don't get so close.
Because he might be a jumping snake, right?
See? There he is. Look.
However, this is a very poisonous snake because you can tell by his head.
Well,
Very sharp
personally,
bill.
I wouldn't have said that most poisonous snakes have a blunt nose. And usually a pointed nose denotes a snake that is not dangerous. But what they have is here. When a snake is fat here, he has a place for his poison
No,
glands.
pero se puede conocer también que la cabeza es así
See, here, fat here.
también.
See, when it is fat here, then it's poisonous. Really, what a beautiful creature.
Now,
These Piaroa Indians invited us to their village. As it was an hour's walk from the river, they agreed to come back and take us there the following morning. The Indians invited us to hold a meeting in their local schoolhouse and to tell them about our teachings.
¿Listo?
Tell the friends that I'm very, very happy that I could come and see them.
El señor dice que está muy feliz que pudo venir aquí para ver a todos ustedes.
I have a great love for the Indian people.
Tengo un gran amor para los indígenas.
When I was a little girl, very, very small, like these small children, not as small as that, but like this, I used to cry because God had not made me an Indian. Because the Indians are a very good people, they are an intelligent people, they are a brave people.
Porque indígenas son gente muy bueno, valientes.
A long time ago, in my country, which is Canada, to the north, I was adopted by some Indian people called Blackfoot Indians, and they gave me an Indian name. They gave me the name of Natu Oxis.
A ella lo llamaban ese tribu Nato Oxes.
Con yo, ya debe yo, Canadá, yo, está, Nina, Colombia, yo, Canadá, Nata, Osa,
And I asked them, what does my name mean? They say, we have given you the name Blessed Mother.
You're going to take your canoe?
The jungle at night is one of the most thrilling experiences. All right, please listen to me. Who wants some jelly? You want jelly, Master?
No.
You want no?
Could I have some more salad?
Wait, Tony has never salad, and you'll take it all.
What do you mean Tony has had it?
No, we haven't had
Wait a
salad
minute.
yet.
What is that expression the Persians say? How Kawalan?
What does that mean?
I'm not even sure what it means. I know it's an old Persian expression.
I'm trying to be able to adjust the bed springs in this head like that.
Well, Tony, anytime you do it, would you mind letting me know how you did it?
The question of knowing how to squirm.
Oh, boy. Oh, what's happened to it? Last night it was all to the right, and tonight it's all to the left. Sharon, that cat should holla emshad into Jean Peshiban. Oh, Lord, why does it do it? What?
Try snuggling up and down in the hammock. Up towards the strings, and then you sort of slide down into a position that's comfortable.
With a sleeping bag?
Ah, well.
Never mind.
Anyways.
We're a very noisy group. We ought to go to sleep.
Good night, Econom. This is the BBC.
Good night. Over an hour. Without fail.
Good night,
Oh. Our boatman had speared a stingray. It seemed senseless to kill the creature without eating it, so I insisted that we should have it for one of our meals, although it wasn't particularly good. In the whole Amazonian territory of Venezuela, the most important town after Puerto Ayacucho is San Fernando, which was founded over 200 years ago by missionaries and was very much like an old-fashioned colonial town. Although I do not attend church services, I like very much when I'm traveling to go into churches to pray that the people of the area in which I am traveling and teaching may be guided to the message of Baha'u'llah. Three days later, we reached La Venturosa, which to our great joy we discovered was an entirely Baha'i village. These people had migrated up the river and taken up land and established themselves. They took us and showed us where they planned to build their local Baha'i center. They'd already set aside this piece of land with this object in view.
Now you have two chiquitas. Yo quiero allá para enseñar, aprender de esto, y estos son libros. Cada uno si tiene, aquí están oraciones para niños. Esa es casa de Baha'u'llah, ese es el archivo Baha'i.
Muy bien, hermano, ¿cómo no?
In this room, Baha'u'llah died.
Bahá'u'lláh falleció en esta habitación.
Ahí.
Guardamos su cama que
Sí.
falleció.
Hello.
Ya, muy bien.
Bueno, hermano, muchas gracias a la visita y por aquí lo esperamos cuando ustedes vengan la oportunidad.
Adiós.
Claudio, venga.
We now entered the Ventuari, which is much narrower and shallower than the Orinoco. Because of this, we found that we very often got grounded on sandbars, and it was necessary for all of us to get out and push. The captain took no more chances and picked the channel himself very carefully. Yucca, which is known in other countries as cassava or manioc, is the universal staple of the Indians throughout South America in the jungles. It is prepared by roasting the flour over a fire. We found the Indians an extraordinarily friendly people. If you met them with an open heart and a friendly spirit, you immediately received the same response. We were able in many of the villages to purchase papayas, bananas, and even fresh eggs. As our boat could not navigate in the shallow waters of the tributaries, we hired a dugout canoe, installed our own outboard motor, and used this for side trips.
Vamos, capitano.
People are very shy about their music, and the little flute that one of our party was able to play was just like a key to the hearts of the people. We made a special trip up the Manapiari River to visit the growing town of San Juan de Manapiari. Our first view of the town was this huge garbage heap on the shores. San Juan is a government outpost and an active center for missionaries. It is now linked to civilization by a new road.
How long
We met two Americans who belonged to an evangelical group called the New Tribes Mission.
Yes, ma'am.
One of them had just flown in for a visit to see how the work was progressing.
Have we been here 24 hours? Not quite. Not quite. 22.
How long have you been here? The other had lived in Venezuela with his wife and children for over 20 years.
I'm on vacation at the present time.
What is the New Tribes?
It's an evangelical mission.
Oh, and they call it the New Tribes.
New Tribes Mission.
Why new?
Because our objective is to go into areas and to tribes where no one else has ever been.
That's interesting. And are you one of those groups? And you go in and you study the language, and then you write it down for them and translate the New Testament. That's a wonderful service to the Indians.
That's what we do.
Wonderful. We also met the Catholic father, a Jesuit priest from Spain. Although we admired in many ways the work of the missionaries, we were greatly troubled by the evidences of what our civilization does. To me, the great tragedy is that if we Baha'is don't hurry up and go out and teach these people while there is still time, they will go down into that same valley of shadow, so to speak, that we went down into. I look at it this way. Here are the primitive people. The tribal people, the villagers, the simple people, the illiterate people are so much nicer and from a human standpoint so much better, more spiritual in many cases than we are. And this is the culture and civilization of Baha'u'llah that will come in with a new world order. It has to develop and it has to come in the future. Now, the youth of today, our youth, are beginning to come out of this valley of materialism and climb up towards this new world order. They're beginning to reject so much of what we have in the world today and its materialism. But these people want to have everything that there is in the 20th century, which is perfectly natural. So they have to come forward. They have nowhere else to go except forward into the progress of our century and our way of living. But if they can come forward as Baha'is, if they can become Baha'is in their own culture now, in their own villages, in their own civilization, so to speak, then to me they will be lifted from this mountain over to that mountain. They won't have to go down through the valley of the shadow the way we have. And that is the whole urgency. In my mind, that is the reason why if we don't get up and go out now and teach these people, every hour that passes, we're losing our opportunities, never going to come again. They, instead of having all of this suffering and disillusionment and corruption and bitterness, they can come with all their wonderful qualities from to this height. They can fly over, in other words, instead of crawling down into that valley and coming up on the top. And I think this is what the Baha'is have to realize, but there isn't time. Every day we are losing ground. We see it here on this river. We see how the people are changing all the time. Wherever the touch of civilization comes, it withers. Then they lose their identity, and they're no longer interested in spiritual values to the degree that they were before they began to become, so to speak, semi-civilized and go down into the bog of the very civilization that is destroying us, and we want to get rid of it.
It's so wonderful that we have Indian teachers, too, that can go to the Indians, such as Leko and his wife.
The people themselves, of the tribes, of the people, talk to their own people more clearly, better, more concisely than we do. But the pioneers have prestige. When we go with Leko, Leko can teach better. We help Leko to teach because they say, he's come with all of these people from this very civilization. We want to save them from wasting their time in, so to speak. The two together, that's the key to the whole situation. We met a Pieroa chief. We invited him aboard our boat to have coffee. He said that 15 years before he would have been afraid to go on a boat that was owned by white men. It shows how much people are changing, and it also shows how the spirit of the Baha'is gives people confidence. he was a widower whose wife had died when the last child was born, and he was bringing up a group of small children himself. The attachment of the children to the father and the extraordinary tenderness that he showered upon his children was very, very touching and very indicative of the nature of the Indians.
Ask him if he remembers how many years ago it was Amos went to him.
¿Usted puede dar un poco cuenta que cuántos años era, con quién ha venido este señor, dónde era, tenían reuniones, todo este cosa, ¿se recuerda?
Año. Ese fue...
We discovered that 8 years ago, this Piaroa chief had already come in contact with some of the Baha'is.
Ese fue hace como 8 años ya, hace como 8 años ya.
This is 8 years. El señor tenía su hijo.
Sí. Muy bueno ellos. Ellos tuvieron casi 4 horas ahí con nosotros. 4 horas. Ellos durmieron esa misma noche ahí. Sí, ellos dijeron, nosotros no somos como los otros blancos que dicen, no, yo no como comida de indio, que nosotros que lo que encontramos comemos. Ellos comieron con nosotros y ahí estuvimos hablando toda la noche, por ahí hasta las 9 de la noche.
They said we are not like the others. We eat everything you have, so they ate with us and they slept with us. Yes, until 9 o'clock they said we talk and they...
Not like the other white people. Whereabouts was it that he met him? Was it on Isla Buenos Aires or higher up?
Señor, pregunta dónde era eso. ¿Cómo se llamaba ese lugar?
Bueno, se llamaba Caño Pasa.
Ah, Caño
Pasa. Se queda todo frente al ratón.
Ah, frente del ratón.
Tell him that I'm very glad that we found him. And I like him, I like his family, I like his people.
If a man such as this accepts Baha'u'llah's teachings, he will be not only a very fine believer, but instrumental in bringing in many, many of his people into the cause of God. The Macos, as a tribe, have never been converted to Christianity. We were fortunate to meet their paramount chief, who called a meeting to hear about the faith.
We are not political people and we are not missionaries, but we have a very wonderful message from God. And this lady said that we should tell this to our head. And this was a very, very good thing she said, because we believe also great respect should be shown to the capitanes, whoever they are and wherever they are.
Diga, capitán, que otro día estuvimos aquí y que íbamos a hablar, pero señora dijo que tenemos que hablar cuando él está presente. ¿Ah? ¿No algo así?
Sí,
muy bien. Entonces nosotros nos gustamos esto mucho, es muy bien. Sí. Siempre nosotros también tenemos respeto para el capitán, para anciano, ¿no?
Sí, sí.
Entonces fuimos y volvemos ahora otra vez para hablar con él.
To the degree to which they are interested and want to ask any questions, to that degree we tell them of our beliefs and the purpose of our trip. It was not our purpose to force it on them.
Bye-bye.
We were told these were howler monkeys, but we never saw them. Finally, we reached the waterfalls at Tenqua, the furthest point the Queen Mary could go. We were told that beyond the falls there was an island called Monotiti, where we could contact one of the most interesting and primitive tribes in Venezuela and Brazil called the Yanomamos. We walked about 30 kilometers on this one trip, and it was the longest walk of my entire life. The Yanomamo Indians have the custom of sucking a plug of tobacco stuck in their lower lip.
That nice cotton she's taking. I think the hat's the greatest sensation of all. Yes, isn't that nice? See? Oh, all red. See? You're showing the hair on your chest if you really want to be excited.
¿Cuándo vamos?
How many days?
Wait a minute. Let me see first.
Everybody has one each. One each. Come on. One each. Do you have one? She has? No,
Yes. از خانمی که من بگو سی مترجم
Fundamentally, unity in diversity, which is such a strong principle in Baha'i teachings, means that we're all alike and all different. One feels one's human kinship with people. At least one should feel it. If one doesn't feel it, then there's something the matter with you, that you don't feel it, because it is there. But it presupposes not having the concept that those people are different from you, far from you, alien from you. You have to think that those people are human beings just like me. One has to have this sense that these people, that other person is loved by Baha'u'llah, as I hope that Baha'u'llah loves me. That we all belong to God, that His love is apportioned to all men, irrespective of race, irrespective of education, irrespective of advantages or disadvantages.
Mio sposo. Morte. He died. Can you explain it to him?
Esta foto es de su esposo que ahora está muerto. Falleció.
This is my husband who is dead.
Fica mostrado. Fica mostrado.
Sí. He's dead though. Dead.
Fica mostrado.
Esto una oración. Oración.
You don't necessarily have to speak a person's language to have a bond of understanding. That can be something that you feel between each other. And I have felt it many times with people with whom I couldn't say one single word. On the way back to our boat, we went to visit the Tenkwa waterfalls. If we don't let the Baha'is know the needs of these people, if they don't see the faces of these wonderful people, their simplicity, that they are between two worlds. They're no longer in the old world of their tribe, which was a good existence, and they had the dignity and the nobility of their customs, and they're not in our world, because nobody loves them, and nobody really cares for them, and nobody respects them. These are the kinds of people all over the world that we have to teach the cause of God to. These wonderful people that are out in the jungles and the savannas and the deserts of the world, we have to go and teach them. And it's very, very difficult for people to understand them if they don't see them. The beauty of their face, their politeness to us, their patience, their kindness. It was a very wonderful experience to me to be with these people. Of all the tribes people that we have met on this trip, these were the ones that I liked the best. Because so far these are the least touched by Western civilization. Shoghi Effendi said we have a cancerous materialism. Eats away the very flesh from the bones of the spirits of men. And we are being devoured by it in our civilization. These people, when they are touched by it, it destroys them. Then how can the Baha'is ignore the fact that these are the ones that we have to teach? This is the next, to me, the next great step in the progress of the religion of God is to teach these people. It's of supreme importance. The second part of our trip took place in Suriname, where we went to visit the Bush Negroes. This lake was created by flooding a whole valley. We arrived at the village of Redidoti. It was almost like returning to Africa to come to a bush Negro village. The bush Negroes are very independent people who have preserved their African heritage in the New World. Their ancestors were brought as slaves. They ran away into the jungle and established their African way of life and were never recaptured. No Baha'is had ever been into the interior before to visit the bush Negroes. The young man is a student in Paramaribo who invited us to come to his village. These are his grandparents. The bush Negroes are the cleanest people that I have met in any part of the world, including my own part. We thought that this must be a shop, but discovered that it was a private home and that many of the housewives keep their houses looking just like this. Dr. Rabbani noticed that this little girl had an eye infection and was able to treat her.
Come here, look too. Look, come on.
A great many of the bush Negroes still follow the old pagan religion of Africa. Many of the homes have a small shrine in front of them to protect the people from evil spirits. Voodoo, as it is called in our part of the world, Juju, as it is called in West Africa, means magic. Sometimes the people held religious services of their own, which we did not intrude upon. The head man or captain of the village very kindly placed their meeting hall at our disposal, and we were able to live in it during the period of our visit to Redidoti.
They have been ready to listen to us, and we have gone to the villages and we've said, look...
Jamshid Arjumandi, a Persian pioneer and board member, accompanied us on all our visits to the bush Negroes.
But then the thing that is interesting to me is what percentage of the bush Negroes are still pagan? Because this is mostly a pagan village. Obviously, it's full of pagan shrines, and they're very attached to a spirit world and to a spiritual world. What they need is to connect this with a living religion without superstition. This is the way one has to teach in Africa. The people have to slowly give up their fears, because a great deal of their religion is based on fear and superstition.
I think Anthony remembers being in that first meeting when we contacted the bush Negroes. The headman of the village had called everybody together, and we sat under the inevitable big tree, and we talked about the faith. And the intention of these people was so concentrated, and they were listening to every word that was dropping from our mouths, that when it was finished, you thought as though they had, they had drunk every word of it. Then he said, they all agree that what you've said is not a man's word, it's from God. You see?
That's, of course, the way it should be.
Yes, and what is more, they all agree with you, and they want to accept and to try to live according to the things that you have told us about. it is very important, I feel, to understand that a person who accepts Baha'u'llah after 2 minutes that you've spoken to is as much as a Baha'i as is anybody who's been a Baha'i for 200 years if he's still alive.
To me, the best example we're ever going to get of this is like a building that is wired electrically. Now, the current is in the walls. If I want to plug in a huge electric saw in a factory, I can do so, and it uses thousands of watts. If I want to plug in only a 10-watt bulb, I make the organic connection because the power is in the walls. Now, this is what the Baha'is don't realize. When a villager who is ignorant and illiterate and everything else, when he accepts the faith of Baha'u'llah, he is making a tiny, perhaps, organic connection with reality. Now, supposing an atom bomb comes, and they are killed, and we are killed, and everybody's killed in 1 second. Do we as Baha'is believe that those people that accepted Baha'u'llah are in exactly the same condition as those people that didn't? This is not according to any religious teaching in the whole world.
When a person accepts Baha'u'llah, then there is no discrimination, there is no difference. He's a Baha'i of 1 minute, he's a Baha'i of 2 minutes, he knows reading, writing, or whatever he is, he's a Baha'i. Mm-hmm. Who can say, I'm a better Baha'i than he is, or he is a worse Baha'i than the other one? Who has such a authority to distinguish?
Well, the point is to bring your receptacle to the ocean of truth. And whatever the size of it is, fill it. You see, this is the point. If a man has a huge receptacle and he fills it with 1 teaspoonful, what use is it? But if he only has a tiny little cup and he fills it brimming over, this in the sight of God is much more important, and it's right in Baha'u'llah's own words in the gleanings. But they think because they are educated and big and wealthy and important, and they have condescended to accept the revelation of Baha'u'llah, that they have filled themselves and are that big worthy, so to speak, whereas maybe they've only got a teaspoonful of service and of devotion. And a poor little man that only has the capacity of a teaspoon, he's filled his teaspoon brimming over. And personally, I believe that that teaspoon in the sight of God is more important than a half-empty container of somebody who had much more capacity.
The night before we left, we had a party, accompanied by very animated singing and dancing, at which everybody had a very good time. On the second part of our visit to the Bush Negroes, we flew over the Suriname River on our way to Botopasi. We loaded all our things on a canoe and went upriver to Kamalua, where we were to meet our Baha'i friends. We were received with great warmth and hospitality by Baha'is and non-Baha'is alike.
Madame Rabbani.
These are spirit screens to keep evil spirits out of the village. There are separate paths for the men and for the women. Our visit to Kamalua was one of the warmest experiences on the whole Green Light expedition. We had a special meeting the night of our arrival, and the captain of the village, or chief, was very anxious to hear more about the Baha'i teachings.
The purpose of the teachings of Baha'u'llah is to make all the people of the world live together in harmony.
Baha'u'llah aduso omdat hembewani libisma fulleri fullibi makandi likibada angasisa.
This is the reason that Baha'u'llah came into the world, and this is the reason that he gave us his teachings. Each one of us is free to teach his message. We don't have any priests. If he has a little grandchild, like this little girl, 5, 6 years old, she can open her mouth and tell people about Baha'u'llah, because we are all free to teach in this message.
Ataki, alasma de frei fugi agalo busco
What does he say?
Baha'u'llah has really brought us something.
Yes, he has.
The next morning we discussed with our Baha'i friends how we could best help their teaching work.
Tell these friends that we are so excited and happy to be here, because we understand that we are the first Baha'i brothers and sisters that have ever come to visit them in their own villages.
Adama distaki that udena fosi Baha'i sma di komuta foto sei ukwa kamalua foluku den Baha'i brother na masisa fuwi ditaki.
And we want them to think about where, in this 1 week that we have, we can do the most good in helping them to teach the faith of Baha'u'llah.
Da adama wani sabi na moro bum presi pe ukango futaki na libadisi.
No, pikna ka owa ka otu kone. Mandisi kondete la kina usunu bitataki.
They are speaking taki-taki, which is the language most commonly used in Suriname and is similar to Pidgin English. Fortunately, Jamshid speaks this language fluently.
He says that they do believe strongly in the faith. Now that you have come, this is a testament of the proof and the truth of what they believe. It has given them the strength that with our presence here, they can go everywhere to the other places with us if we want to take the message of Baha'u'llah to all. Until now, they haven't met up with anybody in Botopasi. But he says, since we've landed there, it would be indeed a very good idea to go back and to teach there.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
So we would like very much to go and have a meeting there.
Yeah.
Like all Africans, the people have a very strong sense of protocol. This man is the captain or chief of the village.
Tell him that yesterday, he knows, we arrived by plane and we had so many pieces of luggage and everybody was so kind to us here. He gave permission that the people should help us, and everybody helped. A little boy like this was carrying a big thing on his head. And when I got up this morning, I said to our Baha'i friends, these people of Botopasi are so kind. I want to go back and see them.
Ataki? Yeah. Ubekwanga flick machine? Yeah. Da ubabi so many lies? Yeah. Then da teuko utaki anga kapiten? Yeah. Utaki gantangi tangi for ala den sani di bendu? Yeah. At the bendu no boom? Yeah.
Ambuta we found little piece in the yard. Unu vitabu kudelo kude. But you did that command no them. Kude panta nothing. So why be the only kabuta butu? No. So you just in the room quiet. Just missing. No, but I was so nice to go.
They say that, well, the kindness that they showed was just something automatic. They would like to thank you for coming to see them. Furthermore, they said that if you want to tell them about the Baha'i faith right now, the captains and the bashas will be only too glad to listen. So you are all very welcome, and they are very happy.
Danke, danke. We decided to visit the nearby village of La Fante and hold a meeting there. A number of people accepted the faith. The Bush Negroes make their own canoes by the same method used in Africa, curing them with both fire and water. This village was the most beautiful I have ever been in my entire life. These women are pounding rice in a mortar. Kamalua was fortunate in having a spring of very pure water which the villagers used for drinking. The illustrated teaching material Jamshid had brought with him was a source of great interest to our friends, and before we left they persuaded him to leave it with them for their own teaching work. We decided to hold the election of the first spiritual assembly of Kamalua, which would be the first spiritual assembly of the Bush Negroes anywhere in Suriname. As this Baha'i could not be present at the evening meeting, he cast his vote and Jamshid wrote it down for him. All too easily, we city people forget that half of the world's population is illiterate. Plans were made for the election of the spiritual assembly that night.
Then Baha'i Simbe Musabi one rat so that they can come Makandi and Leri and Taki and Kurutu Mahembe Gimi Astem Fuhen and Mihori Aki. Tutan Baha'i ayusai disten. Yeah. Moiso. Fiome misabi ubun lang ating ba? Yeah. So Gome sabi.
The captain, who in the meantime had become a Baha'i, is casting his vote for the first spiritual assembly. Some of our Baha'i friends took us down the river. On our way downriver, we stopped at this village to see if we could find the only Baha'i who lived there. Although everyone else was out working their plantations, he happened to be at home. We were 9 hours on our way down the river from Kamalua to Mamadam. Mamadam is the place where the government ferry boat picks up passengers twice a week and takes them over to Afabaka on the other side of the lake. This was to be our home for 3 nights, where we slept with about 40 other passengers waiting for the arrival of the ferry boat. That night our Baha'i friends cooked dinner for us, a delicious soup of piranha and plantains.
It reminds me that every time we're marked, we take Now, filmez. Pour que vous me donnez un petit morceau. Je ne peux pas.
Ça va comme ça?
Moi, je peux pas. Comme ça.
Ça va? Voilà? Ngay pa bum ne ngay pa bum ti aja patien dam na yi miau kuda ni ya da ku ya tiki ku ya mama ta kata bang kan dek na taman dam ti ini ko ya ka kuna tanda buku hanya
Bon, very bon. Masoud, could I have a little more juice, please? Masoud.
Some of the people living in the hut were very anxious to know more about the Baha'i faith. Our friends from Kamalua were very enthusiastic teachers. After discussing the faith practically the entire night with our friends, this man expressed the wish to become a Baha'i, and Jamshid enrolled him the morning of our departure. These bush Negro Baha'is were amongst the finest I have met anywhere in the world, and we parted from each other with real regret.
He says, in this life, there is only 2 things: life and love. The way you have come
and the way the rest of us have come to them. It shows that you love them. He says, so many people who live in the city consider them the lowest people in the country. And you have come specially to see them.
Tell them that I appreciate very, very much what they said, but in coming to the village, we are remembering the words of Baha'u'llah himself. He said that the city is the home of the body, but the country is the home of the soul.
Baha'u'llah taki. If we hit taki, that in a photo, so you chingro, ako bigi.
The people in the country believe in God. The people in the city, slowly, slowly, they forget God.
Ataki den se me dilibi na kondre, de beribi na gado bunsan.
Really, now if Baha'u'llah says this, nobody can say better than this, you see.
Ataki if Baha'u'llah tak so, that no one tra libi se me kantaki one tra fasi.
Tell them Baha'is never want to leave each other, general.
Ataki, this na wansani, di de na Baha'i tori. Then Baha'i sembe sido makandi, then one you hope.
Our Baha'i brothers embarked in their canoe and went back up the river to Kamalua. Everything was loaded onto the crowded government ferry, and we set out for the 5-hour journey across the lake. We found a marked interest amongst our fellow passengers in who we were and what we believed. We flew over the Amazon River, which at this point was over 20 kilometers wide. The whole area was flooded because the rainy season had begun. It was a great revelation to all of us to discover that Manaus, in the heart of the Amazon basin, was such a modern city, with shipping in its ports from all parts of the world. It has every convenience of civilization, including one of the most beautiful opera houses in Latin America. We arrived to attend the first historic Baha'i conference of the Amazonian region, and were greeted very warmly at the airport by members of the new Baha'i community. During our week's visit, there were many lectures given to students in both universities and high schools.
I would rather talk to an audience like yourselves of young people than any other kind of audience in the whole world.
E sinceramente prefiro falar para uma audiência jovem, assim como esta, do que qualquer outra no mundo.
Nobody knows better than the youth how many problems face us in the world today.
Ninguém melhor do que a juventude sabe quantos problemas estão nos confrontando nesta idade moderna.
As I see it, one of the greatest problems facing the human race, and that means you, is how to bring the 2/3 of the world's population who live in villages into the advantages of the 20th century, the advancement of the 20th century, without ruining their human characteristics that are so wonderful.
From Manaus, we flew to Leticia in Colombia on the frontier of Brazil and Peru. Leticia is a small, very pleasant town, ideally situated for pioneering, as many Indian tribes can be reached from here. A very amiable porter, who could barely walk in a straight line, conveyed our things to the boat. Boats on the Amazon are enclosed because of the very heavy rains. For 18 days, 10 of us lived and slept on this one. She was noisy, smelly, and slow. We called her, appropriately, the Mutt. This was the beginning of our journey up the Amazon in Peru. Gradually, a daily pattern of living on the boat was established. Even Pikuri, our mascot, had his breakfast. The rainy season floods the riverbanks, but the villagers are used to it and build their huts on stilts, reaching their homes by canoe. Various Christian missions are rapidly spreading throughout this entire area. The only quiet place was the roof, where we held prayers every morning. It was also the only place where we could have a conversation, because the noise of the diesel engine inside was absolutely deafening. The trouble was that it was very difficult to get up and down because there was no deck on our boat. This Tikuna village had been recently converted to Christianity. There were many crosses along the river, such as this, dated 1970, 1972. We wondered why we Baha'is had come so late. Indian fathers are as devoted to their children as the mothers, and we saw so many evidences of their care and tenderness. We wanted to buy some fruit if possible, and were astonished at the ease with which this man went up the tallest papaya tree I have ever seen in my life, as if it were a flight of steps. We had expected the Amazon River to be a wild and unpopulated area, and were very surprised to find that all along the river banks there were villages and settlements. At this town, Mr. Hamsi went shopping, conveyed by a very skillful young boatman. The Amazon is a land of mirror images. One glides through a dream of exquisite beauty. some Indians had invited us to come and join them in a fiesta, and we went to their home late in the afternoon. Already the drinking was well advanced. We had a demonstration of the great tragedy of what drinking does, not only in our own civilization, but unfortunately amongst the villagers, even people so far away from the towns as these Indians. It saddened us to see that even the children, like this little girl, were getting drunk. In search of Indians less touched by our own civilization, we went up the smaller rivers. We at last came to this Yagua family, living according to their own customs. The Indians are a very quiet people, a very restful people, who think before they speak. They have a dignity and a nobility which constantly impressed us. No people tame wild animals like the Indians. Their homes are full of much loved and cared for pets. When the time comes for me to have to leave this planet, the only thing that is going to be the hardest to part from is the jungles. I have this mad, mad love for the jungle. I never feel that I can see enough of the jungle, be in the jungle enough. And whenever in my life I travel away from a jungle area, it is with an infinite heartache that I'm leaving this marvelous, marvelous land of trees and of nature and of beauty. Going deeper into the jungle, we came to another, more isolated Yagua village. This man proudly continued to wear the costume of his ancestors. He very kindly demonstrated for us how they shoot poison darts through these long blowpipes. We went back to the Amazon and visited another Yagua village. We found this Yagua woman had a sick baby and persuaded her to let our companion, Ruth Pringle, treat the child. Ruth Pringle, a trained nurse, pioneer, and board member from Panama, joined our expedition in Leticia.
Boy, is that all right? All right, that's good. You want it? No, Lifebuoy's good.
Así. Y ahora, cógela así. No, deja ahí.
The mother was very worried in the beginning, but the little baby was wonderful and barely cried.
Never mind, you're going to be better at it. There.
Going up another river, we visited the Bora tribe. This huge hut, called a cocamera, is a meeting house for the villagers. To go upstream a day's journey to see a cocamera in another village which was still being used as a communal dwelling. In the Baha'i teachings, there is a tremendous emphasis on the family, on respect for parents, mutual kindness and understanding. This is something that exists in villages.
Viajó 109 países.
Países? And the only drums this size are in Africa.
Solamente en este tamaño ha visto una vez en África.
And they're not as beautiful as those.
Y todavía no es tan lindo que esto. ¿Este cuánto año es?
25 a 30 años.
30 años.
Y este dura porque...
muy bien.
Sí, porque este es un chungo.
No, bien balado.
Huh?
Nuestra religión es muy nueva. Muy nueva. Ahora sí ellos pueden sentar, podemos un poco hablar con ellos.
I wish you would tell them, Master, that our religion has great prophecies for the Indian people.
Esta profecía de nuestro profeta dice así.
We believe that God has given every people in the world special gifts that belong to that tribe, to that people.
En nuestra religión hay profecía muy grande para los indígenas.
If the indigenous people of this part of the world accept his faith and become progressive, they will be the cause of the enlightenment of the whole world.
Nosotros no somos comerciantes, como decía
Our guide, Don Pedro, left us here. He had read all the Baha'i literature we had with us and became a Baha'i before we parted. Our journey up the Amazon was at an end. We were approaching Iquitos, an inland port 4,000 kilometers from the sea. Recently, oil has been discovered in this part of the world. To cities such as this, the indigenous people flock in great numbers, only to live in squalor and poverty. The filth produced by modern towns flows over the riverbanks. Here in Pucallpa, many poor people have built their houses floating on the river itself. We decided to visit the Shipibo people, who are both very gifted artistically and also very shrewd. The women wear beautifully embroidered skirts. To me, it is very impressive the way in village life even very small children work, and they love working. This little girl was very busy minding two babies in two separate hammocks, and somehow or other she kept them both going at the same time. This was was our last contact with the Amazonian Indians. We were leaving the wonderful world of the jungles to fly to Lima, the capital of Peru. In the home of Mr. Hamsi, we discussed our recent experiences. I've always been very romantic about this part of the world, and I thought the primitive people were going to go and teach the untouched primitive people living in their original culture. And now I don't feel that way about it. If the Baha'is ever get to the primitive people, God bless them. It'll be a wonderful service. But in the meantime, get to the people that are no longer primitive. Get to these areas before it's too late. Don't you feel that?
That's exactly the point. Any day we delay, there will more be mixed with this civilization and under the control of the missionaries or whatever it is. So there's no opportunity. Opportunity will be less and less.
You know, there's something that I want to say because I think it ought to be said. And I know we all know it, but perhaps the Baha'is don't realize it. The missionaries are a highly praiseworthy, admirable group of people. Just because we talk about the missionaries doesn't mean that they're not wonderful people. They have a dedication that we Baha'is could learn from. They have a systematized, intelligent way of going at their teachings that we should learn. The only trouble with the missionaries is that they're teaching something that is antedated. Instead of teaching the religion of God for today, they're teaching something 2 dispensations back. But they're wonderful.
You know, Riyachanim, at the start of this trip, I was nervous about going into the jungles and leaving our so-called civilization, but very early on the Venezuela part of the trip on the Orinoco, I realized that our civilization is the true jungle. The beauty, the peace, the kindness of the people. It's a much safer place to spend one's existence. I see now why you love so much to visit the villages.
Well, I don't know. I know that the sky is the limit, and the Baha'is have to realize it, and they have to have more imagination. There's no lack of goodwill on the part of the Baha'is, but what they need is the imagination to see that it could apply to me, not to you, but I can go, you see. When they understand this, then I think that we'll have a tremendous influx into these areas.
Well, I tell you, every time I see one of these areas, that's exactly where I want to go, and I can't be every place.
I feel that way, too. If I had the opportunity, if I were younger, believe me, I wouldn't hesitate to pioneer to places like this. People have to behave as if there was a crisis, and this is a crisis in world history. And this is why the Guardian and now the House of Justice is constantly appealing to the Baha'is to fulfill Abdu'l-Baha's divine plan, because there isn't any more time to lose. And I think that this is what I hope this film will do, really. This is the whole purpose of the film, is that if the Baha'is who look at this film can feel that they came with us, that they saw these people, that they saw the difficulties, that they saw the possibilities, that they saw the beauty of it all. And in their hearts will arise the desire to go out and teach in such an environment, such people, the cause of God. Well, then the film will have fulfilled its objective, because that's the whole purpose of it.
So everything is ready. That's just the only thing we needed to move.
You remember Baha'u'llah said, seize your opportunity, for it comes but once. And the Bab said, mount your steeds, O heroes of God. Now let the Baha'is get up and go. In one of the barrios of Lima, we went to film the Baha'i children's class.
Ha llegado un nuevo día, regocíjate, regocíjate, todos tenemos alegría, el prometido de Dios con el nombre de Bahá, ha llegado gobernante divino, estamos felices, cantaremos todos, ya Baha'u'llah, ya Baha'u'llah, ya.
I'm going to have my flowers show.
Wait a minute. And again?
This is the Mascuno man.
Our host was a Quechua Indian, a widower who has brought his 5 children up to be very good Baha'is.
Mas.
Well, I got both times.
Thank you very much. Ask her, did she make that delicious cake?
¿Quién no hizo esta torta? Bye.
The last stage of the Green Light expedition took place on the Altiplano in the Andes. We went to Bolivia to attend an Indian Baha'i conference. The friends gathered from many towns and villages all over the Altiplano. From Sakaka, we set out for the top of the mountain, accompanied by about 150 Baha'is. Each group of Baha'i villagers had brought their own instruments, and almost all of them played their flutes all the way up to the top of the mountain. beloved friends,
Queridos amigos,
Munaska, hermanos,
I have come a very, very long way to see your faces again.
he venido desde muy, muy lejos para ver vuestras caras nuevamente.
noga karumanta sinchi karumanta hamone watikmanta uyasni kichesta kawa.
And I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here.
Y no puedo decirles cuán feliz me hallo al estar acá.
Ni manita ti mancho ancha kusiska kan kunas kawaspakani.
When I was coming over these mountains to reach this place, I had a very strong feeling that although we are a small group of people, that we were not alone.
Sentía de que aunque somos un grupo muy, muy pequeño de gente, no estamos solos.
Uchikapis uchikaya kanchek pero mana che hinayara chukaskenchek no kanchek.
In the Baha'i teachings, we have a thing called the Supreme Concourse, the souls of those wonderful, wonderful people who have served humanity, who have great qualities, and who have died and gone to the other world.
Kay tanta kuya mana hinayacho sino hatun patamanta tukui junto chanapa alin rinapa alin nyama.
And I had a very strong feeling that above our heads we couldn't see them, but that the members of the Supreme Concourse were with us. And I believe that those you love, your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents, are watching this meeting and sharing in it.
Yo creo de que vuestros antecesores están mirando esta reunión y nos están cuidando.
No anche hiachasoma que una tiempo abelonche uyarishawanche.
Now, whatever we receive here, when we leave here, we must take it and share it with others. Our joy, our love, our spirit of brotherhood. Not only we, but there is another very beautiful thing that Baha'u'llah has promised us. He said, when you mention God, when you pray, the scattering angels take these words and they scatter it all over. And we must be sure that already the spirit of this meeting will go out in the air and affect Bolivia. You are the beginning of the great flood of the message of Baha'u'llah amongst your people.
Ustedes son el comienzo de la gran, podríamos decir, inundación que va a venir con el mensaje de Baha'u'llah a nuestra gente.
Ahinata sokancheja Baha'u'llah wabamskama hina kananchkia.
So we are all very, very blessed, and that's why I say this is a feast of love, this is a feast of thanksgiving. This is Cuzco, capital city of the old Indian civilization. The golden city whose temple of the sun was covered with sheets of pure gold. Gold which led the Spanish conquistadors to totally destroy the great empire of the Incas. We arrived in Cuzco to attend the first all-Quechua-speaking conference ever to be held, which had been arranged by the counselors for South America. Many of the Bolivian Baha'is had come to attend. It took this busload of Baha'is from Ecuador over a week to drive the 2,000 kilometers from their country to Cuzco. The Andean believers flocked to register for the conference. The Baha'is from Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia spent one whole day discussing how much they could understand each other's dialects so that Baha'i literature could be made standard for all these countries. It was a colorful group of people who gathered at Sacsayhuaman for the opening day of our conference. This great fortress, built by the Incas, took 30,000 people 80 years to construct. We went up to the highest point to hold our meeting, the place where the Incas believed the sun was tied. I told my Indian brothers and sisters about themselves, that their ancestors had built an empire second only to that of the Romans, that the achievements of the Incas in government, road building, architecture, arts, and crafts were as great as any the world has ever seen. The government of Peru had recently made Quechua the second official language. This gentleman had come from Cuzco to attend our conference as representative of the Quechua-speaking Academy of Peru. Machu Picchu was a fortress hanging in the clouds, built by the Incas over 500 meters above the valley below. We all came by train from Cuzco to visit this famous place, one of the last strongholds of the Inca Empire. We held our meeting and our prayers again on a spot where the sun is tied. The first mass conversion in the Western Hemisphere began in Bolivia. How much joy it brought to the heart of the guardian. I remember how he announced it to the Baha'i world and how thrilled we were. And now here was a Bolivian Baha'i addressing other Andean Baha'is on the top of historic Machu Picchu. The Indians are a deeply spiritual people, a noble race of men with a unique destiny if they accept Baha'u'llah. What will happen to all these wonderful people we have met? So many of them, so many tribes scattered over such a vast area. Who will go to teach them? To keep the small fires we have lit burning, to turn it all into a great conflagration. Abdu'l-Baha said, "Oh, that I could travel, even though on foot and in the utmost poverty, to these regions, and raising the call of Ya Baha'u'llah in cities, villages, mountains, deserts, and oceans, promote the divine teachings. This, alas, I cannot do. How intensely I deplore it. Please God, ye may achieve it."